Howdy y'all, Christi here with Little Salty Homesteader. Welcome back to the second installment of the Make It Delicious Monday series. Today I'm going to be making tomato artichoke chicken, and this recipe is adapted from a recipe I originally found via the 40 Aprons website, but I figured out very quickly that it is a good way to use up a lot of items that you may have in your pantry. So obviously you need chicken. I seasoned my chicken with salt, pepper, paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, and Italian seasoning. And then we're going to saute it off in the cast iron skillet in ghee and an olive oil mix. And that's on medium-high heat. I have the pan preheating right now. And then the rest of the ingredients are 1 yellow onion thinly sliced, 3 finely chopped garlic cloves, 8 ounces of baby bella mushrooms thinly sliced, and then there's 4 pantry items, a can of fire roasted diced tomatoes. If you can your own tomatoes, please feel free to use those. I have not reached that point yet, hopefully this year, but you can use your own canned tomatoes or canned from the store. Fire roasted is what I prefer just because it has a little bit more flavor than just regular canned diced tomatoes. A can of large black olives. We're going to drain off all the liquid on these. 1 can of coconut milk. If you don't want to use coconut milk, you can use heavy cream or whole milk, half and half, something like that. And then the last item is a can of artichoke hearts. You can use whole or quartered. Today I'm using quartered, and we will drain these off as well. So I think this pan is definitely hot, so let's go ahead and get the chicken going. And I have seasoned both sides of this, and I'm going to put it skin side down. So if you have skinless chicken breast like I do, that is the smoother side. So we're just going to pop that into the skillet, and we are going to let it brown off until it gets nice and brown, and then we'll flip it. The side that I have going with this, I'm going to make mashed potatoes. So let me go ahead and get that going. This is yellow Yukon Gold and russet potatoes in this pot over here, this pot right here. I'm going to boil them until they're definitely fork tender, and then I will use my KitchenAid stand mixer to make them nice and light and fluffy. Yukon Gold and russet potatoes, these are going to boil until fork tender. And then the seasoned chicken breast, sauteing in a mix of ghee and olive oil. Okay, so it is time to flip these, and you'll know whenever it's time to flip because they come easily out of the pan and they're nice and brown where you sauteed them off. Now these look ultra brown because of the paprika, but this is exactly what you want. And then we'll just let the other side cook for about 5 minutes. Okay, I did go ahead and put a lid on this, 1, to kind of keep some of the mess inside the pan, and 2, so that the chicken will kind of steam from the inside in order to cook just a little bit faster. Okay, so it's been probably about 5 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and take this out and set it to the side, and then we're going to let our pan cool down for a few minutes because this is very, very hot. So I'm just going to turn the stove off because it's cast iron. It does retain heat for a little while longer. So I will check back in whenever this has cooled off a little bit, and then we will get started with the sauce portion. Okay, so the pan cooled down quite a bit. I went ahead and I added in the yellow onion, and I'm just kind of stirring that around a little bit. I'm cooking it until it's just starting to caramelize, and then I will add the garlic. You don't want to add the garlic at the same time as your onion because garlic cooks a lot faster and it will end up burning and it will make your entire dish bitter. So this is going to cook for probably 5 to 7 minutes, and then we'll add in the garlic, and then we'll add in the sliced mushrooms, and we'll let the mushrooms get kind of caramelized as well, and then we'll add the rest of the ingredients. Some of the bits that you see on the onions is some of the seasoning bits and bits from the chicken that were left in the pan. That's okay. We want those. That's all of that is really good flavor. So we're just gonna leave out a little bit. Once we start adding the tomatoes and stuff, it will help get the rest of the, any brown bits that are still in the pan up and really contribute a lot of flavor to the sauce. Okay, so at this point, this looks pretty good. The onions are pretty soft. Some of them are starting to caramelize. I don't want them completely caramelized because I don't want the dish to be overly sweet, but I do want it to have a nice rich flavor. So I am going to go ahead and add in the garlic, and we'll let that cook about 30 seconds, and then we'll add in the mushrooms. The mushrooms that I'm using today are baby bella. You can use any mushroom that you like. I usually use baby bellas whenever I'm cooking, unless I'm making an Asian dish like a stir fry or a ramen or something, and then I'll try to grab Asian mushrooms. But for this dish, you can use any mushroom that you would like. You just need 8 ounces, thinly sliced. So we'll add these in, and we'll just let this cook down. We'll let the mushrooms get nice and golden brown as well, and then we will start adding the rest of the sauce components. Okay, while these mushrooms finish cooking down and slightly caramelizing, let's talk about some variations that you can do if you don't want to use mushrooms or artichokes or even olives. The original recipe from the 40 Aprons website just had the canned tomatoes and the artichokes. The first time that I made it with artichokes and mushrooms. The second time I made it with artichokes and olives, and then it's sort of just become all three of them together with the tomatoes. I understand that those ingredients can be a little strange and it's not always something that you have in your pantry. You could also just do spinach. You could throw fresh spinach in there and just let it wilt down the baby spinach. You could, really any leafy green, if you had something out in your garden like Swiss chard or kale, even collards to a degree if it's been really cold and they're not bitter. You could add those in. So yes, I definitely think leafy greens would be an excellent variation to have with this creamy tomato chicken. My favorite addition to this dish has been the black olives. I really like the just different contrasting flavor that they provide, plus a little bit of textural difference from the artichokes, because the artichokes are going to get quite soft as they simmer in this. One more side note, if you're not familiar with coconut milk, I know this wasn't something that we really had in my house growing up. I didn't really know anything about it until I went to culinary school. Most of the top is going to be completely solid, and then underneath you're going to have like what's essentially coconut water. So anytime you cook with coconut milk, you either have to shake it vigorously to break it all up, or I'll just use my cooking utensil and just kind of poke it in there and twist it, and then until everything comes out. So that's just a little bit of information if you've never cooked with coconut milk. I think most people have by this point. I was a child many years ago whenever coconut milk wasn't as popular as it is now. So I'm sure you're already aware, but if you weren't, it's solid at the top. Okay, these mushrooms are looking excellent. Some of them have browned pretty nicely on the bottom. So at this point, we will go ahead and add in the diced tomatoes. I did not drain these off. We want the liquid from that. The liquid is going to release all of the brown bits that are sticking to the pan, which isn't a whole lot, but it's going to get everything to come up as we stir it in. So as I'm adding the tomatoes, I am stirring just to kind of move the tomato juice around to unstick all of the brown bits from the chicken cooking, and even the onion and the mushroom. We want all that flavor in there. Also making a mess. So we are just letting that simmer very, very briefly, and then we're gonna go ahead and add the artichokes and the olives, and these I did drain. I'm not adding any liquid from either of these, and just kind of very quickly stir that in. This is very chunky at this point. There's not a whole lot of liquid in. That will come with the coconut milk. Okay, so with the coconut milk, because it's, you know, it's solid, this is what I do, is I usually just stick the utensil in and then just kind of pull it out, and then that allows me to get the rest of it out of the can very easily. Some brands don't have as much solid coconut milk at the top, so you can shake it and it will loosen everything and you can just pour it in. I really like this Thai Kitchen brand because it really seems to be consistent every time I use it as to how much solid part there is within the can. Let me rinse these out and I can recycle them. Okay, so as the coconut milk heats up, this solid part is going to melt, sort of like, you know, cold butter. As it melts, it becomes liquid. So that's what's happening here. Once this has melted and, you know, it's kind of all come together, I'm going to add the chicken back in and put a lid on it, and I'm going to let it simmer until the internal temperature of the chicken is 165. And I'm going to check that with my instant read thermometer. I highly recommend getting a quick read one where you have the temperature in less than a second. I've had the other ones where it just, you know, it takes so long to read it, and they're not always accurate either. This one has been super accurate and it's very fast. I actually left my other one at my in-laws, so I purchased this one for me and let them keep that one. So I will put the link to this in the description box because I do really like this thermometer. We use it whenever we're grilling, whenever I'm cooking something in the oven or on the stove top. It's been great for all of the uses for cooking meats. So that is all melty. I am going to go ahead and put the chicken back in, and I will pour these juices that came out of the chicken into the pan as well, just for extra flavor.
Yeah.
Okay, this is everything all together with all of the sauce ingredients and the chicken. I'm just going to put this lid back on and we're going to let it simmer probably 15 minutes or so until the temperature on the inside of the biggest chicken breast is 165 degrees. While that simmers, that gives me time to focus on the mashed potatoes. So the potatoes are in salted water. The salt is going, the potatoes are going to absorb some of that salt, so whenever you're mashing them and you're trying to get that seasoning just right, you won't have to use as much salt at the end. So I definitely recommend salting your water whenever you're cooking your potatoes, your pasta, blanching any sort of vegetables. Go ahead and salt that water. It's going to save you salt at the end, save you seasoning at the end, because these vegetables and things are just going to soak it up. So for the mashed potatoes, I'm still trying to stick to Whole30 compliant ingredients for the mashed potatoes. So I'm going to be using bone broth, and we have coconut milk in the fridge that I'm going to be using, and ghee and salt and pepper. I'm going to simmer them on the stove. That way the liquid ingredients will be the same temperature as the potatoes whenever I mash them. And there's not a whole lot of temperature loss. So it's going to be about half a cup of liquid overall. As far as the ratio, that's completely up to you between broth and milk. But I'm going to do mostly broth, less milk. The milk is going to add a little bit of creaminess, but I don't want the potatoes to taste coconutty. So it's going to be heavier on the broth, coconut milk, and then about a tablespoon and a half of ghee. And then I'll season it at the end with salt and pepper. I'll actually leave the pepper out because Lily doesn't like pepper in her mashed potatoes, and then I'll add it to everybody else's after she eats it. Okay, these potatoes are ready, so I am going to get them mashed. Logan, you only like potatoes whenever they have gravy, right? Yeah. So maybe you'll like it with this sauce. Okay, so I'm going to pop this on here. And I use the paddle attachment. If you don't have a stand mixer, if you have one of those little hand electric mixers, those work really great too. That's what we had growing up, and that's what we always used for mashed potatoes. That's what my nanny used and my mom and stuff. I have this, and it's very hands-off once you turn the power on. So I love it, and I think it makes really delicious, fluffy potatoes. So add the paddle attachment on there, and then I'm going to pour in this liquid that's been simmering. Raise this up. Logan, come onto this side, and I'll let you turn it on. You remember, power it up slowly, okay? Knock it up one more. So you're going to just let this go until it reaches your desired level of mashed. Some people like their potatoes with lumps. We like ours pretty lump-free, so I'm just going to let it go for a little while, and moisture level looks pretty good. It doesn't look like they're dry or anything. So gonna let this go. Gonna check the temperature on the chicken. It should be really close to being done. It's been simmering for a little while in the sauce. So it's a temp check. You take your largest piece and you want to insert the thermometer into the thickest part. So we want to make sure we get in there into the middle. And it's pretty instant read. So that chicken is definitely done. At this point, we can turn off the stove and we will adjust the seasoning. Okay, these potatoes are almost lump-free. I'm going to crank this up just one more level and let that go, and then we will adjust the salt level on that. Okay, so at this point everything is done. I have adjusted the seasoning on the potatoes and the sauce here, so I'm getting everything plated up. I have the potatoes and the chicken plated up already, so now I'm just going to add the sauce. Now, this is a very chunky sauce, but it's still like kind of on the thin side. It would be slightly less thin if you use coconut cream instead of coconut milk, but that's completely up to you. Anytime you add something that has moisture in it, you're going to add moisture to your sauce level, so keep that in mind whenever you're playing with different variations of this recipe. So I'm just going to scoop some of the vegetables and stuff onto the plates, and then we will do the final taste and wrap up. drizzle a little bit of sauce over the potatoes because who doesn't love gravy on their potatoes? So let me show you here. There we go. This is the chicken with creamy tomato and artichoke sauce with mashed potatoes. Then I will grab a knife and a fork and I will do a taste really quick just to make sure everything is eggless. Favorite parts. Do a little bit of everything here. Knocking the utensils around. That was just right. It's really good for a day like today where it's kind of cold, cloudy, and a little bit gloomy outside. That's pretty good. Well, that is it for today. I do hope that you enjoyed this installment of the Make It Delicious Mondays. Just as a reminder, we also have videos coming out on Thursday. Those are geared towards garden content, and the Monday videos are from the kitchen.